please welcome David Gutnik.
You know, it's funny, I was going to say, Slava Ukrainian.
Героям слава.
How many Ukrainians are in the room, but she beat me to it.
Well, first of all, I have to say congratulations to you and to your entire team, the village that made this film happen. I think the last time that we've gathered in a setting like this was your Tribeca Film Festival premiere last year, and since then your film has screened all over the world, has gathered many awards along the way, beginning with your New York City Premiere Award. So for that just alone, I think I've seen this movie in different settings, and I think the reviews and the audience, I mean, it's good. That's why you watch it again and again. Again, the reviews and the audience reactions that I'm also hearing here today, that alone speaks for how unique this documentary is. And so I'm happy that it's finally out here and we get to share with you all. And again, reminder, August 22nd, so bring your friends. But as every film and as every art project, that stems from one simple idea. So that's why I want us to take it back to the origin. And I think for you in particular for this film, there's a lot of different things at play. Obviously, you're Ukrainian American, the identity that you reflect on in your film is a factor to it. And to some extent, this is sort of your reaction to Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. So take us back. Talk to us, how did this idea was birthed? How did it evolve from the different shapes and forms that it has taken to what it is today?
Thank you for being here, being such a great, inspiring leader and filmmaker in the community. Also, I just want to, before I answer your question, say that there's all of you are special, but there's a very special person here who produced this movie. He doesn't like attention, but I'm going to give it to him anyway. Sam Bisbee, can you stand up so everyone can see you, please? Just once. Yeah, we wouldn't be here without Sam. Future Oscar winner. Not so distant future. So,
Taking back to the beginning.
Where do the beginning? Oh my God, the beginning. So, I think the beginning starts with my family's story, which I kind of get into a little bit in my vignette. My family inherited a narrative, a Russo-centric narrative about who they are. Kind of distorted version of our heritage and identity, and I inherited that from them. And my parents don't speak Ukrainian either. We don't speak our mother tongue. And my producers on the film, one of the producers, Ukrainian Film Academy Board Chairwoman, all of us, our first language is Russian. None of us are Russian. I had been, I think, for a lot of Ukrainians in diaspora when this skill war started, we were like these kind of hornet's nest all over the world, and the war started and was supposed to end in 3 days. All the experts, all the governments, media, intelligence communities said the war was going to end in 3 days, Kiev would fall in 3 days, and Zelensky would flee. Neither of those things happened. It's almost 3 years later, and Ukraine is invading Russia. And I think all of these little hornets all over the world started, the nest was shaken, and all of a sudden, wait, no, I'm here, I'm Ukrainian, I'm not who that guy, capital P, says we are. And I was one of those little buzzing hornets, saying I'm here and trying to understand what that really means. And my first call to action was to, I went to Poland on a one-way ticket, and with a plan to enter Ukraine, and I was interviewing refugees. I thought I was going to make a film about refugees. My family is refugees from prior Ukrainian refugee generation, so that's where my first thought went. And then I read an article in the Washington Post, April 17th, 2022, while I was in Warsaw, about Liana and about these artists in Liev that were stirring about. So it was and I found Liana, I called her on Telegram. These the early days of full-scale war. There was all these like, I had to jump through all these hoops and say secret passwords and to prove I wasn't a spy. And so I found Liana and I got on the phone with her and she was like, oh, I'm in my center scraping off all these old Soviet walls and revealing all this Ukrainian art behind it, 19th century. Like, oh my God, is this is there someone shooting this? It's just photo, video. You come. So that night I came. That night I got on a bus and I was in Ukraine the next morning. And I met Liana that morning.
I mean, talk about your collaboration with them. We got to know their stories pretty intimately, but how was that? Because I think all the stories are sort of interlinked, and I think you put in a lot of trust in them as well to guide through what is the messages that you were putting out in the story. So what was the process like? Of getting to know them, working through the themes that you're trying to reach with this documentary now that, you know, your idea has changed?
Well, I mean, I think even though I didn't know it at the time, there was something about that action that created a portal or a bridge between myself and Liana and her world. Not to like demystify or be overly intellectual or whatever, but you know, there's a way in which, you know, I called my producer, I called Oля, and I was like, hey, so this, I called her and she was scraping these Soviet walls off and this artist. She's like, yeah, I resonate with that. You know, and I think what we all, even though we're from different places, you know, Ola's from Kiev, Liana's from Lviv, I'm from Brooklyn, but what is that? This kind of trying to scrape off this old history, this colonial identity, this who are we when we scrape this off? Like, how do we reclaim our narrative? How do we reclaim our culture? And I was trying to do that for myself. And Liana, you know, this has been a journey, this post-colonial, post-Soviet journey of Ukrainians claiming their own narrative and history and identity and culture and memories and land and nationality that Putin says doesn't exist. And that was one of the things she said. She said, you know, I read it in the article. She said, Putin says we don't exist. He says we don't have a history, we don't have a culture, we don't have an identity. So the artists, we need to prove him wrong. We need to. And when I told her this, she's like, oh, this is a very populist thing. I'm a little embarrassed by this, but that every, you know, Ukrainian is like a gun of Ukrainian culture. And for me, that was just really inspiring, and I connected with that from the other side of the world. And so I think even though we're coming from different places, we had a baseline mission. And my mission was still forming. I didn't really know. I was just following my nose, you know? In a way, like a journalist, in that you really don't know the story. You just kind of go with your gut and chase it and hope that there's one there. My relationship to them was seamless, you know? Stepan, I saw in him a version of myself. I don't know if you've noticed him playing on the computer. It was like a wedding video on his computer. He was editing a wedding video. I've done that. He went to film school. I did that. And, you know, of course he wasn't editing Ukrainian wedding videos, he was editing finding some Ukrainian family in Ohio because nobody was, doing weddings. They did the full-scale war in Ukraine. So, yeah, and Babasset came from Kharkiv. And my grandmother's from there. So we just, I don't know, we all had a baseline, and I feel at home with artists and frankly actors. It's a documentary, and we like to have our different words for, a subject in a documentary, an actor in a fiction, but, they're all actors. So, the second a camera comes on, you're aware. Unless you're not aware, then it's something else. That's like surveillance. Once you're aware, you're acting. And the job of a director is to try to get as much truth out of that awareness and presentation. And so I feel at home with that. I don't know. My sister was my hero, and she was an actor at the time I was a little kid. So like my first love was an actor. So
you have also makes you work in narrative and the documentary space
Yeah.
as well. But
yeah.
actually, so this leads into my next question, but one of the most special things about your documentary is the choice to turn the camera around back at your team that's behind the camera. Because I'm a filmmaker myself, and I think for filmmakers,
Great filmmaker.
Thank you. But for filmmakers, it's like we're part of the story. Really, when you see our name roll in the end credits, you never get to see us be part of the script. What comes out on the big screen, and I think that's really something important here, especially considering that this is a Ukrainian team that you're working with. You got to know them. They're all artists. You're sort of expanded on this notion of what is an artist in your film. So talk about that choice of. First of all, collaboration with the Ukrainian team and the choice of turning that camera around on them and featuring their stories, including yours. Like, why was that an important choice for you specifically for this story?
Yeah, I want to say it was a choice. I don't know, do we choose what we love, or does what we love choose us? Not to dodge the question, but I loved them. As soon as I met them, Vova and Misha met me in Lviv, picked me up the morning I got there. We went to a cafe, and Vova told me about his experiences in Bucha, what he had just been through, and Misha told me about his experience having to evacuate his home and bringing refugees across the border a few days before we met. I've been on a lot of film sets. I've never been on a film set with a DOP or a sound recordist in a country, at war, who had just gone through something like that. And this was a film about artists, and these are artists. So it felt part of the, just a kind of intuitive, natural part of the story and fabric of, it wasn't even a, I don't know, maybe there are other documentarians that experience the making of a documentary differently, but you don't have a script the way you do in a fiction film. So you don't really know what you're doing or what you have. You never really know what you have until you see it and discover it in the edit, but especially in a doc. And so I did know as soon as they told me these stories, oh wow, okay, well we should record that. And I remember on day 2, I told Misha at the end of a day, I was like, hey, can you just tell me about what you went through and how you got here, and he's like, wait, and we're gonna record this? Yeah. And he said, okay, well this is another thing that's new, but it just was duh, of course.
And it's amazing because it's the producers who's also an artist, I must say, but it's assistant editor. A lot of the guys that you usually never hear from. Then it's powerful that we see it here. This is not a one-on-one conversation. This is a conversation with the whole room. So I want to open it up to the public.
If you guys have a question, raise your hand.
Thank you for your film.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course. You know, as filmmakers, when you're doing a subject matter like this, you choose how you want to bear witness to the subject. And there's very hard imagery in there, and it's a choice. And, you know, to see, you know, the bodies of deceased Ukrainians is a choice you made. So why did you do that? I think it's important to see personally, you know, but, you know, so I've seen filmmakers really stray away from that. And, you know, I was very interested in that choice.
Thanks for your question. So I think there's two ways to look at it. There's my perspective, and then there's the perspective of the characters. So from my perspective, it's not to come back to my favorite historian, Tim Snyder. This also speaks to your question. You know, he talks about genocide and how people don't like the word. People don't like to hear it. You know, when you hear that word, and I've been guilty of this in the past too, you kind of do like a little eye roll, like, really, genocide? What he talks about is how if you admit that there is genocide, then that is admitting some kind of complicity, that it's happening on your watch. And what did you do about it, if anything? And so naming it is important. So this is a question of responsibility. If you name the thing, then you're responsible for it. This is the thing about war. Like, if you don't see it, out of mind, out of sight, out of mind, then then it's not happening in your yard, then it's not happening. So there's that. And then the other aspect is from the character's perspective that, you know, I can't escape that and I'm not saying it's exclusive to kind of a fiction narrative perspective, but I tried to root as much as I could the film in the perspective of the characters. The film, the body of the film, the look, the feel, the sound is an extension of them. Every shot, every cut, every sound is a window into a way to get you into their way of seeing the world. And the reality is that these characters and the characters that we don't see that are off screen that are in this country are losing family members and friends and countrymen and women, and seeing these photos, and these are photos they can't unsee. Like, that's in their psyches, and it's a film about artists who are using their art as a means of their own psychological survival, but also as a way to resist. And in part, I mean, this is a visual rendering of what they are resisting. So, yeah, from both my and the characters' perspectives, it felt vital.
All right, we're gonna do one last, and then essentially we can keep talking there. Hey.
Hi. All my friends are talking.
So, this summer I was in Ukraine, and I was in Liev, and I noticed when people saw Marsfield, they realized how it changed over 840 days since you started filming it. And I remember when you went to Ukraine, and I remember our conversations, and you know, I'm so happy that it's you who made this movie and who showed pictures of Mariupol. And I think you can relate to that person who left Mariupol, and then she wanted to show exactly how it was. And now we see how it was 3 years ago. And when people go to Ukraine, they see how much changed and what price we pay. But it's actually the process of understanding our identity and understanding who we are. I think it's such a strong message, and I'm just so grateful to you. Thank you.
You helped me when I went. Thank you. Thanks for being here and watching again.
That's a really nice note to wrap this up on. Thank you so much. I mean it.
Another week.
Yeah, thank you so much, every single one of you, for coming. And I truly, truly urge you to tell your family, friends, connections, Connecticut, New Jersey, Philadelphia, call them all up here. We're here till this 22nd, because this story needs to be heard and seen. Thanks.